you know, Idaho Bankers Association, I don't know if that is an association that's on top of everybody's tongue like it is mine, but why don't you kind of describe a little bit about what it is?
Well, excellent question. And interestingly enough, despite all the turmoil that we're going through in 2020, this is our 115th year.
No kidding.
We were
Wow.
created in 1905. It's interesting, the department, or excuse me, D.L. Evans Bank was created in 1903. The
Wow.
Department of Finance was created in 1904, and then the bankers turned around and created the Idaho Bankers Association to keep tabs on the Department of Finance in 1905.
Wow.
It goes just like that. Our oldest bank still in existence is Ireland Bank from 1894 was their original charter, but we've been around for 115 years this year, and it was an act of the state legislature by the bankers to create us, believe it or not. Now
Oh,
we are not quasi judicial in any stretch. We're a private trade association with membership for the banks themselves, and we help
yeah.
bankers with careers and so forth. But the association is community banks, such as Bank of Idaho. It's regional banks like Banner Bank and Zions Bank. And then it's also our large banks like JP Morgan Chase, US Bank,
Yes.
and Wells Fargo as well. So we serve everybody in between. And we're really fortunate that in Idaho's banking climate, there are only 3 banks in the entire state that aren't members. So we have really good member participation and good member penetration as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, Trent, I appreciate everything you do as president and CEO of Idaho Banking Association. And uh, when you see you have a really unique perspective because I'm just running one bank, and so I know exactly what we're doing in response to this crisis. But what are you seeing in other? What are other banks doing to support their customers during this time?
I think banks are doing really remarkable work in their communities. We've heard stories of individual banks personally guaranteeing and giving cash early for the stimulus checks, not waiting for the checks to show up. We
Wow.
know our customers. We are part of the community. Come talk with us. Don't wait. If you need the money now, come talk to us. Other institutions are going out on mortgage decision making. With people losing their jobs, come talk to us. Let's come up with some sort of mortgage forbearance program, get you on the right path. Just those little stories are so promising and are so encouraging. The industry itself has taken kind of a black eye over the years, and I don't get it. I'm sure you don't get it because we see some of the intricacies and how we help people. But this is really an impressive time. The banks are going to shine. I think that there's a lot of impressive things that they're doing out there. I've just mentioned a few,
Yes.
but I think golden hours are an important thing for our senior citizen communities. There is a lot of lobbies that are closing up out there. I just got actually from my bank that I personally do my banking with, I just got an email designating all of the drive up locations in my area and telling me which lobbies are closed. I mean, those sort of little communications might seem nerdy, but they're really important for people that are sensitive about that.
Absolutely.
And I think that so many of our banks are doing such a great job of telling the story that your money is safe. It's not 2008. There's not a run on banks.
Yes.
The FDIC has not reimbursed a bank since 1933. I mean, we are in amazing shape, and banks
Yes.
are telling that story, whereas in 2008, maybe a lot of folks weren't telling that story as well as they could have. So there's a lot of important things in the community, and bankers are leading the charge.
Oh, that's great. Well, I had the fortune to go through the '08 crisis, and I thought there was some kind of rule, some banker rule that you could only go through one crisis in your career, but apparently not. But
Yeah,
what I noticed a huge difference, and my hat I really have to tip to our friendly regulators, the FDIC and the Idaho Department of Finance has really stepped out this time around in support of not only the banks but the customers, encouraging us to give our customers relief. Having that support is really important. Uh, the first go around, the first crisis back in '08, didn't necessarily get that. Of course, the conditions were totally different then. But this time around, I'm seeing the government really step up, the FDIC and state, and really the association as well has played a very important role in providing communication. So thank you, Trent, for your efforts in that too.
Thank you. And we have been in constant communication with not only the governor's office here in Idaho, the director of the Idaho Department of Finance and her staff, but we've been in constant communication with the U.S. Senate Banking Committee, which Chairman Crapo, U.S. Senator Crapo is the chairman of. We've been in constant contact with the U.S. Senate Small Business Committee. We have been in daily conversations with our state association peers around the nation and what they're experiencing. There is just a constant communication, like you've said, and everybody looking to be positive and staying forward and pushing the right things forward. So thank you for that comment. But we've got some impressive leaders that are doing a really great job, and Idaho is leading in many ways.
That's great. That's great. We've offered a 90-day deferment option to all of our consumers. The other thing we started was during this time that Governor Little has declared the stay-at-home policy. We've reduced our wire fees to zero to make doing business remotely a little more friendly. And I see other banks, like you said, really finding creative ways to support our small business customers and consumers. I think we're going to really come together, I think, in a special way after all of this.
I completely agree. I wasn't part of the Banking Association in 2008. I was running the Automobile Dealers Association back then, so we experienced a different kind of pain with heavy 3/4 ton trucks and $3 and $4 gallon gas back then.
Yes.
But I think that the message that I heard was, those banks back in 2008 that really reached out and helped their communities or helped their farmers or their ranchers or their local businessmen, those individuals have been fiercely loyal ever since. If they weren't loyal before, they were incredibly loyal. And I think that you're going to see a lot more of that right now. And I applaud you for your 90-day deferment. I think that's amazing. Dropping your wire fees or down to little or to nothing. I think those are all incredibly great opportunities. I think that a lot of folks if they haven't experienced mobile technology with banking, they're probably looking into that now. And it sounds like you guys are very proactive in probably promoting that and making that accessible. Idaho is a unique state that we don't have really large access to rural broadband. And I think that the geographic things that we have going on in our state don't really apply to other states. So that's something that people need to think about when thinking about Idahoans that are in our rural areas. They don't have access to the tech. Well, they have access to the technology, but not the connectivity that we have that makes things really difficult. So what are those banks doing, those rural areas like Bank of Idaho? Those are very impressive stories to tell. And I think a lot of people take that stuff for granted, that this is what banks do. And they just don't quite realize the amount of work that it takes to get to that point and how really vital and important that is to a person's life when they are remote like that they can still communicate with their finances.
Well, and that's an important point, is that banking is declared an essential service. When Governor Little made his announcement, I was asked almost immediately, are you all going to close for 21 days? I said, absolutely not. In fact, we're in some locations, we're open 6 days a week. We've extended our hours to make access more convenient and easier for people. So what are your thoughts on the rapid stimulus programs that are being rolled out really this week? The Paycheck Protection Program and some of the SBA programs. Do you have any thoughts on those?
Well, I think for starters, Jeff, there is a ton of information out there. I don't want to say that there's a ton of misinformation out there.
Yes.
But one thing that you don't have and that I don't have and the ABA and the ICBA and nobody has is guidance.
Yes.
And we're all sitting around waiting for that guidance. I think that the SBA and the Treasury has got the pedal to the metal, and you heard probably Secretary Mnuchin saying, promising a lot of pie in the sky pretty quickly. But Their goal is hopefully by Wednesday, but no later than Friday, to allow that guidance to trickle down. I'll get an immediate, which I will push out to you, all the other bank CEOs, at the moment I get it. But there are economic injury, disaster loans, and paycheck protection plans for those small businesses that are suffering. And there certainly is no shortage of those businesses that are suffering. There are big differences between the two programs that are out there, and we encourage those small businesses to talk to their bankers about what the differences are. What's the best approach to it? Yes. You know, is it 2.5 times the business's average monthly payroll under the Paycheck Protection Program, or are you just looking under the economic injury disaster loans for an amount up to $2 million? Vastly different depending on your needs, but the detail really comes back in for the forgiveness and for the repayment of the terms, the percentage and the repayment terms that are in there. And what may look like a better option may not work out in the long run, and really working with your banker and your partner in your business, essentially, is your bank, to finding out what that best program is vitally important. But we have been receiving a lot of questions as well. Should I apply through the SBA? Should I apply through the bank? When are these going to be ready? How can we get it? We need the money and we need it now. And really, we're encouraging everybody to apply through their bank as soon as possible. The bank is going to take that information, and if they are SBA approved, they're going to be put in a queue. There's no way around that. But the sooner you can get, the employer can get that money to the bank, or the information to the bank, and the bank can get that to the SBA, the better. But let's just say, what if your bank is not SBA approved? Well, you can still work directly through the SBA and kind of reverse osmosis get this program growing. But the message that we want to send out there is, don't wait. Get your information together. Get it in, and get it in there soon, and get a plan going. Don't wait until it's, I don't want to use the term too late, but there's going to be a tremendous amount of rush for this $350 billion stimulus money. Get your information together and work with your banker as soon as possible.
I think that's great advice. Is my term is, don't go dark. Now's not the time to go dark on your banker. If you're having any difficulties, go to your banker, and if your banker isn't SBA qualified, then maybe seek one out. Would be a good thing to do. We're eager to help, but as you said, we don't have all the guidance in line. But one thing we're doing on the back end, and I don't know if you see this from other banks, but we're standing up the infrastructure right now to handle, because our phones are just ringing off the hook, and we know there's going to be such demand that we want to be able to stand up the process to back up that demand, or to facilitate that demand. Are you seeing other banks kind of gear up their processes?
I don't think that there's, at least in Idaho, and the members that we work with and communicate with, there's not a single one of them that is standing flat-footed thinking that this is just a phase that we're going to go through, or we can't handle this. I think that everybody realizes they have to be mobile, or unfortunately, the bank's going to suffer, the community is going to suffer. So I think everybody is really making some important moves here. We have a lot of important and very invaluable community banks in Idaho. Some of the other things that came out through this stimulus package that help in the community and help community banks get going is the community bank leverage ratio being dropped to 8% from 9%. I can imagine the average citizen reads that headline and doesn't have a clue what that means. But I'll ask the question back to you. I mean, just little things like that and what you can do to the community. How helpful is that in you being able to support your community, Jeff?
Oh, it directly translates to the customer. Anything that can help us be better, more effective, and any ease right now, it's just, we're no different than any other small business out there. Any kind of relief or assistance or support from our regulators or from those entities, that directly goes to our customer. That's our desire. I mean, you know that every banker out there, every community banker for sure, their number one desire is to help their community and their small businesses and customers there. Yeah, we have some things we could get nerdy about CECL and some of these other things
Right.
that could pose challenges. But the thing that I'm really touched by is I've reached out to some of our quote competitors. And I don't really look at it that way. I see us as more colleagues than anything, but other community bankers out there, and really feel like we're going through this together, united. Um, and I again tip my hat to you in providing the information and the platform for us to really interact together like that and to come together during this time.
Well, I appreciate that. It's something that we do. We have the Bankers Association has suspended all live events. Our Ag Bankers Conference has been rescheduled for early October. All of our in-person meetings, our board of directors meetings have all been canceled and being held on phone. Our summer convention is still up in the air. But all of those decisions that we've had to make are going to have they're going to have a direct impact on those communities where we would have spent that money, and those
That's
folks are
right.
in turn going to have to turn around and reach back out to you for those opportunities to make things better. You bet.
Yeah. Well, Trent, thank you so much for taking the time and for everything you do. We're going to get through this together.
We are going to get this through together. And I think that it's leaders like you, it's banks like Bank of Idaho, our community banks that are going to be such a vital backbone of getting everything back up and running. There isn't a single better industry in the nation to help deliver the services and the needs that the U.S. government is trying to put out through this stimulus package than the U.S. banking system. And that is the most accurate thing and 100% true that I'll say today on this video conference. No other industry has the ability to do what we do, when we do it, and how we do it, and impact the communities as importantly as we impact them as banks do. And this stimulus package is going to prove our resolve, and we're going to come out on top.
Oh, you're so right. We're eager to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Jeff,
you,
thank
my
you for your
friend.
time. Okay.
Thank you. We'll see you.